What's going on, everybody, in Wrestling Review Society's YouTube page, twitch.tv/HeelKevin, and Real Pro Wrestling's YouTube page as well. Guys, we're here with another pro wrestling interview for you. It's Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You know what that means, guys. It's time to talk to some pro wrestlers about their careers and their journey through professional wrestling. But before I get to my guest, guys, I just want to take a chance to thank our sponsors who make this show happen each and every time I turn this camera on. First of which being A-Rock Designs. Guys, this is my wife's custom business. She makes all those cool wrestling cups you see floating around throughout the hobby, whether it be wrestling related or non-wrestling related. Place your orders in A-Rock Designs on Facebook or arockdesigns.com. You can place your order in either place, guys. Make sure you reach out to her. Let her know Kevin sent you. It's not going to do anything for you. It damn sure won't do anything for me. But I like it when people talk about me, so let her know I sent you. Also, guys, our merch is available at storefrontier.com/Wrestling Review Society. You can get all your Heel Kevin merch and your Wrestling Review Society merch. And lastly, our newest sponsor, Fusion water bottles, guys. These things are absolutely amazing. It is a filtered flavored water bottle. You set your flavor dial on the front if you want a little bit more flavor. You set it up. You can crank it all the way up to 9 if you want a little less flavor. Turn it all the way down to 1. Fill it up with water. It changes the flavor to whatever you want. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, the link is in the description for the Fusion water bottles. If you're watching on Twitch, !Fusion will bring up the link. You'll get 20% off on your first order and 10% every order after that. But with that being said, guys, I want to go and bring my guest on because through a series of events, this is the third time we're trying to do this. Once his schedule just was a little too crazy. Last week, I made a horrible mistake and double booked, and we're finally both here in the same room. We've been trying to make this happen ever since April 9th, Real Pro Wrestling versus Pile Driver Pro. With that being said, guys, you have seen him all over AML, Pile Driver Pro. You've seen him when we stream the event live on Twitch, Real Pro Wrestling versus Pile Driver Pro from Tampa, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time, a very talented independent wrestler. I'm going to enjoy talking to him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Axton Lowe. Axton, how are you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How's it going?
It's going great, man. I'm glad we're finally able to do this. This has been a couple months in the making.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been, like you said, it's been kind of crazy trying to get our schedules aligned. So it's cool that we were finally getting to do this.
Well, I mean, you're a busy man, and we're going to get into all that stuff. So I definitely understood when you said, hey, man, this week just isn't going to work. And then moving into the new house, I got 4 kids running around, still trying to do my day job, all that other stuff. You understood my complications, but we're here now. We're going to get into all that stuff. But, we haven't seen each other since April 9th at Tampa show. How have you been, man? How's everything going? I know you got rained on a little bit earlier.
Yeah, man. Other than getting rained on, man, it's been pretty good. It's been great. Doing the job, doing everything I have to do to get from one wrestling show to the next, and other than the rain, it's been pretty bright.
I'd imagine, man. I got a new zero-turn lawnmower, and I really wanted to get out there and cut the grass because I'm like a kid with a brand new toy. It's like a brand new toy for me, and I'm like, man, I'm going to go out here, and I'm on about 3/4 of an acre, maybe right at an acre. Like, I'm going to get to play on this new lawnmower. I'm going to have a great time. Rain right off the bat. I was like, you did just my luck. Just my freaking luck. But,
that's actually go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say it's kind of funny. You were looking forward to it. See, I do that actually as a side job, is mowing. So I was kind of blessed that it rained this evening and didn't have to, and I was just doing my other job. So it's kind of cool.
Well, I'm telling you right now, man, if you ever got too much on your plate, you need a little help, I got that zero turn. Call me up. I mean, I can only go about 8 miles an hour on the freeway, but I'll get there eventually.
I appreciate it, bro. We'll get done sometime. I'm kidding.
Hey, we'll get there when we get there. But, as I've been promoting this show on my Twitch channel, I've been letting everybody know that not only are you a wrestler, and we're going to get right on into the meat and potatoes of things because I interview a lot of people, but I very rarely get to interview somebody who works both sides of the curtain, and you are the owner of Pile Driver Pro, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so kind of talk to me about the differences between being a worker and then, on the other hand, being an owner. Is it more stressful being an owner? Are there advantages to working both sides? Like, how do you manage the duality between the two?
Well, I guess the best way to start that is that, working your own shows is the most stressful thing in the world. It has got to be I really feel I'm going to go gray in my 20s. I'm not going to lie. But to be completely real with you, there are so many advantages and so many disadvantages with that. For the longest time with Power Pro, I was wearing all the hats. I mean, at one point, I was doing the announcing, ringing the bell, doing the music, and calling my match all under the same date. So it was just absolute chaos, and like the show went great, but at the same time, I felt like it could have been a lot better with help, in which now Power Pro does have help. So going forward with that, I mean, being a worker, you show up to the venue at call time, you do your thing, you get ready, you get prepared for your match, you go out and you perform, however long it is, and then you're done. Now some guys, some of the green guys or younger guys go and they help set up, tear down, that such thing. But typically the shows I've been on, the promoter has a ring crew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, as far as being a promoter, the advantage of that is that I work for free, so for myself, so like I've always got someone to rely on. And I very seldomly work for my own promotion, but it is like a good backup to have. But I mean, honestly, just being both wrestler and promoter is so hard to do, like on the same show. I mean, it's just, I love booking. I love making magic and booking amazing matches, but for me to wrestle on that event, it's so stressful, and I've actually taken some time back wrestling on my own shows because I feel like I want to give a better platform for other guys,
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that being said, yeah, I mean, the stress has definitely gone down a lot because I have help now, and not only help with booking, but I was setting up the rings by myself with like one other guy, and I was getting everything done just because I wanted to save money instead of trying to spend too much. So yeah, like I said, there's both sides of the court. There could be so many disadvantages, but also so many advantages. One of the main things you probably know about is people like to cancel.
Oh yeah.
So that's been one of the most stressful things that I've got found this far is that guys cancel, the day of the show. They don't even cancel at all. They no show. I've had that quite a bit, honestly, and it's been the higher paid guys, to be real with you. And it's kind of weird, like, man, you're not even, I don't understand why you're really canceling. You're getting a good payday,
Yeah, and to take it one step further from the no shows, we actually had one, and I'm not going to say any names out of respect for both Pile Driver and Real Pro, but the show in Tampa, not only was it wasn't just a no show, it was, hey man, where you at? I'm 5 minutes down the road, I'm on the way, and then that person never showed up. So it's one thing to cancel, it's another thing to no show, it's another thing to say, hey, you can depend on me, I'm on the way, I'm at the stoplight around the corner, and then you just don't show up.
That is the absolute worst, man. Not on the wrestler side of it, when like I've been on road trips and like I've got a group of guys, I got a group of guys, and we've got two guys in the car, and we're waiting for this guy to show up, and then he's like, man, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel, I'm broke down right down the road. Where are you? We'll come get you. Oh man, I'm at mile marker this, and I'm like, brother, if you're at mile marker this, then you're still 2 hours away. Why didn't you let me know?
Yeah, absolutely,
so, yeah,
man.
Yeah.
So I can imagine how stressful that would be. And we got a comment coming from a guy that I know he's one of the owners at Real Pro. Lucha Jesus says, I definitely understand that pain and that stress, Mr. Garrett Heil. But yeah, man, I can only imagine, trying to put everything together, putting all your eggs in the basket, and then just watching it crumble because people don't want to show up, and they have that lack of discipline, I guess, is the only real thing to say is it's a lack of discipline, and it's ignorant. Not targeting anybody in specific. You were going to say something?
Oh no, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like you get all that all that hype over this one guy, and you do put your eggs in that one basket, and it's like my very first Pile Driver Pro show, which has been like it's been a year now since that first show. I actually brought a guy in that we were going to open the show, and he was I'm not going to mention his name, but he was the guy that absolutely just didn't call nothing, and I heard from a third party that he it wasn't worth his time, which we sold out the show. We had a great card anyway, so I wasn't he's not been booked since, so uh, not a worry.
And the crazy thing is the world of pro wrestling is such a small world when you think about it, that word travels very, very fastly, and you don't want to be labeled as that kind of person to do that kind of stuff. So it always blows my mind when that kind of stuff happens. But once again, you are both a worker and an owner. And just before we move on, when it comes to working in the ring and then booking your own show, do you find one more rewarding than the other, or do they both have they both, fill a certain void in your wrestling heart?
You know, I feel like they both kind of I feel satisfaction with both of them. With promoting, you want to book all your friends.
Mm.
You want to book all your friends, and especially when you've got really, really talented friends. But then that's when you get to book those guys and they come and they just make absolute magic in the ring. That's the satisfying part. When you just people are saying, this is awesome, or other things, and that's a great feeling. And then on the wrestler side of it, when you feel that, you know, um, this is awesome, getting those chants, it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I think it kind of both of them fill the void, for me. My father and dad, grandfather were both promoters, so I think it's kind of
Mm.
where I've gotten it from.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that at the April show, guys. I see your comments in the comment section. We are going to get to your guys' questions. If you have any questions that you would like me to ask, go ahead and send those in, guys. We are going to get to them. But just while you talk about making magic in the ring, and I was fortunate enough that the one show that I had the pleasure of commentating that you worked, being the April 9th show, and we have a guy who was actually at that show in the comments section talking about how great it was. There was an intermission right after your match, and thank God there was, because I could not wait to just come shake your hand and Remy's hand and Gustavo's hand. When you talk about making magic, that match was magic. And I told you this at the show. You have Remy, who is this known high flyer who just the man's got freaking wings. I swear to God, he's got wings. But then you enter yourself in, and this is the first time I've ever got to see you wrestle. And going back and watching that match, I really look at you almost like kind of a Dean Malenko kind of guy, because you can fit so many different areas. You had a little bit of high flying in your repertoire. You had the mat wrestling, you had the chain wrestling, you had the powerhouse kind of stuff, and you guys told such an amazing story. I guess aside from all the compliments, I guess my question is, where did you kind of adapt your style of wrestling, and how long did it take you to get this psychology where, even though I can do this high flying stuff, there's a time and a place for it, and you got to plug it in at the right moments. So to sum up my questions is, where did you adopt your style, and how long did it take you to really figure out all the pieces to the puzzle?
Well, it's funny you said the Dean Malenko thing, because my dad has always compared me to him, has always like
Dude, I see it.
To mimic him. Yeah.
Only, and
So
I
like
don't
that,
like to I don't like to compare, and I'm glad you didn't take that as an insult. I'm not trying to cut you off, but when you think of Dean, he could wrestle anybody and have that kind of good match. I watched you, a shorter, stockier. You don't really look like a high flyer, but you went in there and hung with two high flyers, and even though you didn't win the match, you made them wrestle your match, and that's got Dean Malenko written all over it.
again, I mean, I appreciate that, and I can't say thank you enough. But I mean, to answer your question, where I adopted my style, I wanted, as a kid, I wanted so badly. When I say kid, I mean like 18. I wanted so badly to be able to adapt to wrestle any type of match. I wanted to be known as that guy. And I guess if I have, really gotten and adopted that from anybody, it was from my dad's words. My dad is a very big influence on me, and as far as, like, because I'm a cheerleader. I don't know. I hope that's kind of been my thing. I got signed to college to do that, so the flipping stuff, the flippy crap, whatever, that's been ingrained in me because of cheerleading.
You get in where you fit in, man.
Right, and I mean, so I mean, and also basing. I've been told by a bunch of wrestlers in the business that I'm one of the best bases around. That I'm able to hold people for any move, and that's been my thing. As far as my style goes, I think I grew up, like I said, in East Tennessee. I mean, that's a real wrestling area, and
Mm-hmm.
so the old school Tennessee, call it in the ring, stop. This is the heartbeat of it, and so calling it in the ring, being able to go on the fly, and then incorporating moves that that I've tried, in practice. That's, I guess, there's no real way to say. It's been over time. Over time I've been able to adapt, and the one thing that I was taught first was psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Psychology has been just, beat into my brain. Make sure this makes sense. I actually just had a match with Gustavo again at AML Wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and an absolute great match. We were first match, and um, we only touched the top rope once, and we were first match. I'm a firm believer in, we got to build up the show, and a great person that's helped me with that is C.W. Anderson. So I shout
Great
out to
guy.
him, yeah, fantastic guy. We've had, some deep conversations, and
He was on the show not too long ago.
yeah, he's great to be around, and he's also a great leader in the locker room, and he's a guy that has, he'll tell this story. A while back, I had a match. I was first match, and I kind of did a little too much, and we get that every once in a while where we're itching to just go. And he had a conversation with me, and I don't, to be completely honest with you, I didn't take the advice too well, because I talked to the promoter and stuff like that before the match. Fast forward a couple of years later, I go to him for advice before my matches, because I want to make sure he knows I respect him. And so I
Mm-hmm.
guess over time, learning from my mistakes, little things like the commentators, man. If commentators used to irritate me a lot, because they
Easy, easy.
because, like, and they can make or break a match. They can make
Agreed.
you, yeah. And so a comment, and I guess the main thing I'm going to try to circle back is that I've adapted a lot of my stuff through listening through the experienced commentators. Like ones like, oh, well, Axton Ray, if he wasn't such a rookie, he might have grabbed that leg for that pin. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess over time that's kind of where I've gotten it. Just picking the brains and stuff. Like George South, C.W. Anderson, my father, even my stepfather or my ex-stepfather, Chris Hamrick. So.
So I mean, wrestling's just been embedded throughout your entire life, and I love that. I love that when you were giving that answer, you called it wrestling. That Tennessee. You could tell that's that Tennessee. Louisville, Kentucky, Smoky Mountain area kind of verbiage. But you said something earlier. About you were a cheerleader. Um, First off, a lot of my friends cheerleaders, nothing wrong with it. But growing up in Tennessee, were you ever picked on for being, because that's a real like blue collar working town, man's man, that kind of area. Being a cheerleader growing up, getting your scholarship for college through cheerleading, did you ever experience any like bullying or backlash because of it?
Actually, no, not at all. I was in high school. I actually did 7 sports throughout the whole entire thing. My senior year alone, I did 6. So I was constantly, like,
Jesus.
I was on every team. With wrestling on the side as well. I was wrestling in high school, And when I went out for the cheer team, I never came off the football field. And not to mention, I was honestly one of the biggest kids at my school. I know I don't seem that big, but as far as muscle wise, there wasn't a lot of guys that were that big, you know. And so,
I mean, you pretty
I guess,
stout. You pretty stout.
yeah. I mean, well, you know, the guys they never picked on me. I actually, after I left, there were 3 football players that went out for the cheer team after me because they saw that I did it and they wanted to come out and try it themselves. So it got me, a scholarship, and I also got a track scholarship as well. So, or I got signed to track as well. So it's kind of, I had a couple options going into college. So yeah, it's cheerleading. Definitely never was picked on. My father was definitely supporting it. I mean, there was some inappropriate comments, but I look past those. So it is what it is. But I'm glad I did it, man. It made me who I am.
Do you feel like with the cheerleading and obviously the gymnastics and stuff that goes into it and the flexibility of it, do you think that's it's attributed to your in-ring talent?
Most definitely. I think it has. I think it has really made my stuff look a lot smoother and more clean than it used to be. I know that I used to be able to do backflips like crazy off the top rope because I grew up in a wrestling ring, so that's what I was doing. But to really make them look, Timmy Lou Retton
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most. I mean, his stuff is so beautiful. I'm not trying to kiss his butt right now, but his stuff is just beautiful, and it's because he took the time, and that's kind of what I aspire to be, is kind of make everything look as clean as that. So I definitely think that his made my in-ring ability way better than it could be, would be.
No, absolutely. Especially like I said, if anything else, the flexibility you get guys in there who are so stiff, and I'd imagine that would go a long way into helping with also too, helping prevent injury, because you are so flexible and you're used to, the gymnastics style background. Now, you've talked a lot about your childhood and growing up in wrestling and your grandfather and your father and your ex stepfather. Um, everybody always gets asked, when did you discover wrestling and stuff like that? So I imagine you've known it from, the time you popped out the womb. Um, how, when did you make the decision that, I'm going to carry on as third generation, or was it always, was it almost a predetermined decision for you, or did you ever like rebel against pro wrestling?
Never rebelled against it. My father didn't want me in it. He didn't. He wanted me to be a doctor.
That's always the case with second gens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that my dad, my grandfather, who was actually my mother's father,
Mm-hmm.
my mother was a wrestler as well. So, that in
You were
itself
just
was,
you were just determined from the start. You had no other choice, did you?
well, that was my thought. My dad, when I was 3 days old, right fresh out of the hospital, they had a show. My dad he had right there at his autograph booth signing. I wish I had the picture with me now. I'd show it to you guys. But at 3 days old, man, I was at his autograph booth, and the picture just speaks for itself. I post it all the time just because it's one of my favorite pictures in the world, man. It's just me and my dad when I was 3 days old at his autograph booth. But yeah, I mean, like I said, growing up, I started wrestling when I was 12. I was big. I mean, I've been the same size height-wise since I was 12, and I always thought I was going to be a bigger guy, but it didn't work out for me. But I started wrestling when I was 14, and my dad kind of bribed me with it. He was like, you know what? If you want to wrestle so bad, make straight A's for a whole year. Keep straight A's. You can wrestle. Whatever. Leave me alone. And finally, I was able to make my pro wrestling debut at 14. And going into 15. And so it was definitely just a surreal moment. I had so many nerves that once I popped through that curtain, they all went away, man. It was probably the best moment of my life.
So you
It's
make
all
your
I thought about.
you make your debut into pro wrestling somewhat at 3 days old, and then you make your in-ring debut at 14. Man, it's such a great story, and I'm sure that you have so many stories we can get into that we're not going to have all the time for tonight, because I can clearly see you're on the road. So I definitely think we're going to be doing this again at some point in the future. We're going to dive into all that stuff.
Yeah, man.
But moving forward into your career, you are very heavily featured in, one of the biggest companies that I don't think gets, the recognition that it deserves, with AML. How did that come to be? How did you come to get involved with AML? And we recently had Blanco on the show, a really good friend of yours, and such a talented guy. You and him are
Really?
just both of you. We actually had a comment coming in from our good buddy Lucha Jesus. Says the real question is, why are you so damn good? And I feel that way about both you and Blanco. But kind of talk to us how you got involved with AML, and how they reached out to you, or you reached out to them, and yeah, how you got into AML.
Well, actually, I was scrolling through Facebook. One of my good buddies, Matt Sigmund, was on the show, and I was scrolling through it, and I saw on his post, and I was like, man, I would absolutely love to be on that promotion. That's where I need to be. I think I was like 18 or 19 years old, and it was just like such a surreal moment. I thought about it, and I was sitting there wanting it, and then the very next day, Brian Hawks, who is one of the owners of AML Wrestling, he actually messages me, and Brian had saw footage of me from a prior company that he worked for, that I actually also worked for, AIWF, out of North Carolina. He saw the footage of that, and I guess he saw potential in what I could be, and so he called me up, and we actually we were trying to figure out a tag team partner for me to come into AML with, and every guy, I mean, it's crazy. Like you said, AML's doesn't get the recognition they deserve, and they're one of the best companies around.
Hands down.
Every guy that I talked to, I'd shoot them their information to Brian, and Brian said, well, that guy doesn't want to come. That guy can't come. And I'm like, I'd reach out to these guys, and they're just being they're crazy. Why wouldn't you want to be on this show with the caliber of wrestlers that they bring in? I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? And all I could think is it's just fear. And so finally, Brian was like, I've got you a partner. Just make sure to be here on this date. I rode up with the Heat Seekers, and I was actually tagging with Brandon Scott. And that right there, that was just the start of it, man. It was absolutely amazing. And going forward, I got to attend my first WrestleCade that year, and got to work on the actual WrestleCade and pre-show showcase. So that was amazing in itself.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had another question in the chamber. I had my next question lined up, but we're gonna plug in this one, and then I'll go to that one after this. I told the same thing to Blanco. Now, AML has some of, through being able to do this interview show, and the workers at AML being, so giving and so wanting to give back to the wrestling business, like you and guys like that who are willing to do these interviews. I've had the opportunity to meet guys like Cyrus, C.W. Anderson, you, Blanco, and I know AML is very, very integrated into WrestleCade. Axton, I got a golden ticket here in my hand. This is my 3-day pass to WrestleCade this year. Hotel booked, tickets booked. Am I going to see Axton Ray at WrestleCade?
Oh, man, you're going to see me at WrestleCade. It's just a question of what I'm going to be doing, who I'm going to be facing. That's the big question. I'm going to be at WrestleCade weekend, and I'm going to be there mingling with the fans, doing my thing.
Hell yeah!
I can't be too sure of what I'm going to be doing, or if I'm going to be doing something. I like to think I will be, because I'm unforgettable. So
you absolutely are.
So if maybe me and Blanco Loco can bring Level X together and make it one of the best matches of the night, we'll do it.
No, and I know the world of pro wrestling is always changing, and cards subject to change, or whatever the case may be. But it will be a shame to the wrestling world if you are not booked on that card or you're not doing something on that card. You got you, man. Like I said, I've been able to see one match of yours in person. I'm dying to see a second one. Blanco's already said he's going to be there, and yeah, I go to WrestleCade almost every year. You know, Corona kind of messed that up, but I love WrestleCade so much. It's a spectacle, and it's a spectacle all by itself.
Most definitely, man.
It's one of those things that you can't forget. And I'm just speaking from a fan, so I can only imagine, you know, what it's like as a worker. But going back to AML, like we said, there's a lot of people involved with AML, and they bring in a lot of talent. How do you feel being in the AML, you know, circle? Because, you know, Blanco was kind of telling us, you know, AML is a very tight niche group of people. You know, they have their people, and it's really hard to break in from the outside because once you're in, and you're part of that trusted few. But being able to break into that locker room and work for that company, how much have you learned being associated with those guys and with that promotion, and what have you been able to take away from that group of guys?
Well, actually, man, I have to say, I feel at home because I think I started at AML wrestling right as I turned 19 years old. I'm 24 now. I have actually been with AML wrestling longer than most of the guys on the roster now. I have, you know, got so many, relationships there, you know, and I mean, honestly, I've been there from the beginning almost. You know, back in the Johnny and June days, they used to run a small bar named Johnny and June's, and I was there for a lot of the guys they have now, you know. And you know, like you said, how was that breaking in? You know, they they pulled me in, you know, with open arms. They loved that my go getting attitude and just being, you know, the flippy guy that I was. You know, I'm actually a lot bigger than I used to be, so like, you know, that they loved the fact that I was able to work a match and I'm a listener, you know, so I was able to listen. So I guess it's a hard question for me because I've always been part of the AML group, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I
But
guess go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was just saying it's really hard to answer that question because like I've never felt like I wasn't at home with them, you know.
Okay, so no, absolutely, and you know, Blanco just said Blanco was just saying, you know, it's such a tight group of guys, and there's a lot of love in that locker room and a lot of respect in that locker room, and you can see it in the product. um, so switching your hat back over to your, you know, booker and promoter side of things, being the owner of Pile Driver Pro Wrestling. First of which, we had a few questions coming up. Where exactly is Pile Driver Pro based out of? I know it's Tennessee, but more specifically, if somebody wanted to catch a Pile Driver Pro show, where would they have to go?
Well, the best place is to say is Bristol, Tennessee. You know, the Bristol racetrack has been, I guess, is a good landmarker, and so Bristol, Tennessee is where we mainly run our shows. We kind of travel a little bit. I like to travel with the promotion, you know, go different places, and so we went to Florida, so that was kind of cool. So I guess Bristol, Tennessee is the best. You know, it's our home base.
Okay, so I hope that answered some of your guys' questions in the comment section. Like I said, I'm not ignoring you guys. We just there's certain times where the questions fit, and that's what I try to wait for. But switching back into your, you know, booker, owner, promoter hat, when you're approached by somebody wanting to be booked on your card or a brand new wrestler out of wrestling school, because we have a few people who watch this show who are going to be attending their first wrestling school or graduating wrestling school very soon. When someone approaches you and asks you, hey, can I be booked on your card, or what do I have to do to be booked here? What are some things you look for in a new young wrestler that makes you decide whether or not to book them?
Honestly, it's all in the resume. You know, what I hate most of all is when guys walk up to me and you know they're like, you know, they hey, I heard you're the promoter of this company. What can I do? You know, like you said, what can I do to get on your company? You know, what one thing they should teach in wrestling school is resume. Send your resume out. Say, a lot of times on our page we get guys that say, is it okay to send you a resume on here or by email? That's the best question to me. You know,
Hmm.
ask whether or not I'm gonna, am I gonna, respond better to my messenger or my email. Now, a lot of times when guys give us that, I say, of course, always, and they'll send us a few matches and that. The main thing I look for in a person is their drive, if in potential. If they send me a 2-minute clip of them shooting a promo and it's just like, man, like, what can I do with this? You know, it's hard, and you want to give that opportunity to people because you can't be nice in this business. You can't, and you've got to be blunt. I have a friend right now who is one of my best friends. I grew up with him in wrestling. He's wrestled longer than I. I've told him he's the drizzling shits. I mean, he's just he is. I've told him he's terrible, and he's hard to market. And he does help out with the show, and I've given him a couple of shots in the pre-show. Um, and the best thing, what he has for me, not just because he's my friend, but what he has is that he has his desire to want to get better. If a new guy coming directly out of a wrestling school with zero experience, I would ask first off for them to get experience, or if I see something with them, I'd say, hey, come on down, we'll put you with this guy. Do you mind coming in and doing a little tryout match? I've done that before. With guys that have experience, I really do look. I do watch their matches, whether they believe. I know a lot of guys feel like they just send their matches for no reason. I do look at the matches because I see, as a promoter, as a wrestler, you see things that other people don't. As a normal
Hmm.
fan, that you see things, and some of the smart marks will understand and see that too. So I don't, and my crowd is a lot of people that are very, very smart about the business. So if they see
And
something
that's a rich
that
area for
I
wrestling
see,
history.
yeah, that's my thing, man. Is that you've gotta have that desire. I guess is the best quality to have. If I just see someone that's wanting to play wrestler, no, I don't even give them the time of day most of them, honestly. And before I wasn't like that, but I've kind of morphed into that promoter that's like, ah, maybe
I mean,
next time.
you almost kind of have to become that way. You have to step more into those shoes of, like you said, you can't be nice in this business, or at least you can't be nice all the time. Um,
Yeah.
Another question I had for you, we kind of hint, like we've been talking this entire time about, you play both sides. You are in both. You are in ring talent. You are management. You are ownership. How long were you in the wrestling business before you decided you wanted to start your own promotion? And then the second part to that is, was it more stressful breaking into the ownership side or breaking into the wrestling business itself?
Um. Okay. So I've been wrestling for around 10 years now.
Hmm.
Going on 11. Last June 27th, I actually debuted Pile Driver Pro. Um, Going into it was probably way more stressful than debuting as a wrestler. But here's the thing: is that I actually booked and promoted a show that was owned by someone else, a family member actually, before I owned Powder Pro, and I got the
Hmm.
experience from that. And I did that for, I think I did that for almost a year, and I really, we went from having, and I knew what I just, I love when I just said what I'm talking about, and like in the storylines and stuff like that, and knowing the crowd, because we went from, when I took over the company, we went from 20 people in the crowd, and this is no joke, 20 people in the crowd at this amazing venue, 20 people, and like 18 of them were family members, 2 of them paid. So that was, yeah, I mean, that was just terrible. And so I came in, I made changes, and I put the company on my back, and we went from 200 people and no crap. We ran 2 shows a month. We went in literally a month and a half, I believe, um, and we had 200 people, and we had 200 people constantly every other week. It was just amazing. I mean, we and there was, I mean, and those were paid, and everybody got a payoff. And I wasn't using the local jocals that just sucked. I was bringing in actual talent. My friends that were good, I was bringing them in. They were giving me deals and helping me out. And then once we had those big payoffs, I was giving them, and that was the most stressful thing, was getting the 20 people to 200. But breaking into Pile Driver Pro itself, it was honestly, it was a piece of cake because I already knew what I was getting into. I had planned for every possible script to happen. So yeah, being a promoter debuting was probably way more stressful than debuting as a wrestler, though.
Now we are getting close to that time mark, and I do want to be very respectful of your time. Like I said, I can clearly see you're on the road, and I want you to be
That's
able to
all
get
good,
to where.
man.
I know, but I like to be respectful, and there's always the next show, there's always another time, and just like in wrestling, you got to leave them wanting more. You got to leave them wanting more. But I do have a few more questions for you. One that I like to ask everybody, and like I said, I hope you're not getting, or I hope I'm not beating a dead horse by asking you the promoter side and the wrestler side, but I rarely get this opportunity. So one of the questions that I like to ask people is, so you've been wrestling about 10 years.
Right.
If there was one piece of advice that you can go 10 years into the past and give yourself as you're making your break into pro wrestling, what would that advice be? And I'll also add to that, if you can go back when you started stepping into the ownership role, knowing everything you know now, if you can give yourself some advice as an up and coming owner, what would that be?
Okay, so for the wrestler, being a wrestler, I give myself the advice. I would give myself the advice of to train,
Mm-hmm.
to train from the time I was 14 to the time I was 18, because I was pushing myself then from the time I was 14 till the time I was 18 when I actually started getting to travel. I started getting to travel when I was 18 years old. I traveled all through Tennessee, and when I was from 14 all the way up to 17, but 18 is when I really started breaking out, working every weekend. So I would definitely give myself the advice of train, find a school, go train, get really ironed out, and then make your debut. Because you see a lot of guys, I've been wrestling for 10 years, and you see a lot of guys that have went through schools and they broke out, and they're within 2 years they're being signed or they're getting close to signed, and to me it's like dang, I'm a patient person. That's what I've always preached to myself was be patient, because it's going to happen, but
Mm-hmm.
be patient. And so I guess the biggest thing is take your time, be patient, but train, train, get as much experience um, as you can before you try to take off with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for the longest time, I told people I started when I was 18, just because I didn't want to be like that guy that was like, well, what are you still doing? So
Yeah.
on the promoter side of it, the advice I would give myself, part of me sometimes as a promoter, I think all promoters get this way where they're like, man, I just do it. Should I even do this anymore? Is it good enough? Am I giving a good enough product out? And I guess the advice I would say is be confident. Be confident in what you're doing, because you are setting a platform for your guys. You are doing this, and so I mean, as far as breaking into the promoter side of it, I guess be confident and stay in your lane. You know, because I know when I first got in, when I first started as a promoter, and sorry I'm laughing, but it's just I actually the company I was actually running my uncle's wrestling promotion before Pile Driver Pro. I kind of we had a lot of heat, and I I had a couple of guys on the show on our very second show, and we called it "Not Your Uncle's Mud Show," and because it was a mud show, and that was the stupidest thing I ever could have done. It was because then I had not only heat with him, but then the fans that were coming to both shows, they were like, man, that was a rude comment. So I definitely would say stay in your lane, do you, be confident.
Yeah, and I think that advice applies, in more places than just wrestling, especially staying in your lane. But going back to what you said about being a wrestler, you say always train and always stay on your toes, basically saying don't get complacent. And that's something I try to live by each and every day, even just trying to do my little rinky dink interview show, trying to make something of it, trying to make something special out of it. Never get complacent. I think both pieces of those advice are great to look at in all aspects of life. I do have one final question for you, because the inner wrestling fan in me is just dying to ask. But, one thing we talked about in Tampa that we really didn't get a chance to talk about. So did I hear you correct in saying that you've had the opportunity to work closely with Ricky Morton?
Yeah. I guess
so.
Ricky's actually. Go ahead,
I didn't want to ask this question. I wanted to make sure I heard that right before I asked this question, because when anybody ever asks me what the greatest tag team of all time is, I mean, you have the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors. I mean, that's a very good argument. Demolition, very good argument. But for me, it always comes down to the Midnight and the Rock and Roll Express. Those are the two for me. Always have been, always will be. What is it like being able to work so closely with Ricky Morton and sit underneath that learning tree of somebody who is still relevant in pro wrestling? Hell, I mean, just last year, for the 9th time, became the NWA Tag Team Champions. To be able to sit under his learning tree and be able to learn from him and work with him, what's that experience like?
Well, honestly, it's amazing. I mean, Ricky gives a platform for, his school for so many guys, and to be able to sit and learn from one of the best baby faces in professional wrestling, it is an absolute honor. I mean, we've got, like you said, Ricky Morton. He's all over the place. At 60 years old, he's still doing Canadian Destroyers and doing the thing, man. He's still living his dream. And, Ricky has been a part of my life for a very, very, very long time. Him and my father were friends, really, really close friends. And my stepfather was, I'm pretty sure that Ricky was in his wedding. I'm pretty sure. So it's just, it's an honor, man, to sit on the learning tree of him. So like you say that, a lot of people say that North Carolina is Flair country. Well, Tennessee is Morton country.
I imagine it is.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, and the thing is, I've got to learn, Bobby Eaton and Robert Gibson. I've got to learn, sit on the learning tree of them as well. And, because they're very close. And, Ricky has always given you the utmost respect, but he's given you the most blunt advice possible. He will tell you like it is. If you smell in the locker room, he's going to tell you to go take a shower. That's never happened to me.
Go wash your ass.
Yeah, exactly. It never happened to me, but I've seen Ricky be so real with guys. That is probably the best thing for me in as sitting under the learning tree of Ricky Morton is his realness. Just being real.
And that's
and
really
also,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna add, I actually Kerry Morton's son actually cheers on the same team as I do in college. So, we're very, very close. I mean, he lives right down the road from me, and literally his school is an hour away. We train there all the time.
Didn't him and his dad just win another company's tag team belts? I think I saw something like that.
They're all over the place, man. Yeah.
There's no stopping that man. I've always called Ricky Morton the Camry of pro wrestling. And the reason I say that is because you buy a Toyota Camry, you can drive that thing till the freaking wheels fall off. That man's going to ride out till the wheels fall off. He is the Toyota Camry of pro wrestling.
He'll never retire, man. That's one thing I think him and my dad both have in common is that they've said it, and they will never retire, man. They may accept a few Hall of Fame inductions, but they're never going to retire. They're wrestling. They are wrestling, So.
No, they absolutely are. I think people, and I'm not trying to make this about anybody else, but a lot of people love AEW, and one of the faces of AEW is Cody Rhodes, and every time he comes out to the ring and his music plays, you hear that same line: pro wrestling has more than one royal family. And he's not just talking about the Rhodes versus the Flairs. There's the Rhodes, the Mortons, the Flairs, the Harts. There's so much wrestling royalty in Tennessee and with Ricky Morton and with everybody around that area. I love the Tennessee wrestling scene. I love that area of wrestling, and I love the fact that we're able to sit down and have this conversation today. My final question for you before we wrap things up, looking at the current situation of pro wrestling now and the product that we have now, in your opinion, what do you think the world of pro wrestling is missing? Like the mainstream image of pro wrestling, what is pro wrestling missing that would just make it 10 times better?
Oh, man. That's the only question you really kind of stumped me on because, I mean.
I've got to get at least one.
You know, a lot of people, just say that the product's crap now, and I hate I hate saying that, and I don't want to be the bad guy here, and say I hear a lot from fans, and because sorry, my phone doing something weird.
No, you're fine.
Because I always listen to the fans around here, and in Bristol, living in Bristol, I run into a lot of fans, and I get to talk to them. And I think that I think what's missing is the realism of it. Used to, growing up in wrestling, I always loved to buy into what's going on this week.
Yes.
And then follow in the next week. Now, granted, there are great storylines, but, a lot of people say there's a lot of talking and a lot of, I guess drama is the best thing. I think the wrestling world needs a lot less drama. And, man, that's, like I said, that's a hard question. You've stumped me on that one. That's because, like, I want to be as honest as possible with you guys, and so I guess the best thing is a lot less drama. I'm. Yep,
Lucha Jesus says
comment.
kayfabe is dying.
And that's the thing is I preach to my guy. That's kayfabe is dying, and I'll just be 100% real. I'm just gonna be real. When I have my guys in the back, they know. I have a monitor back there. They can watch the show. They can see it from back there. Don't go mingling with the crowd, and I think that's what it's missing because I see a lot of
I
promotions.
hate that.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess. Lucha Jesus, thank you because you kind of helped me answer my question. I wish kayfabe, there used to be this thing called kayfabe that we all abided by, and now we don't, and I think that, mingling with the crowd and stuff during the show, that takes away, like, I'm trying to find the word for it, because, like, the person sees you out in public, and when I was younger, and people saw my dad out in public, and they were like, holy crap, look at him, that's so-and-so. We just saw him wrestle at this place. And so I miss that. Now it's just like, oh, there's that guy. When they're talking about Axton, oh, there's Axton. Hey, what's up, man? It's just not, like, special, So I guess we need kayfabe.
Commenter says Axton seems like he has a very level head. For the business, good luck to you with everything. The way it was broken down to me when I started, so I wrestled back before I went to the military. I always knew I wanted to go to the military. That was always going to happen. I started, wrestling on the indie scene here in Georgia, before I joined the military. And the guy who trained me, I'll never forget this. I had my match. I came back through the curtain, and then I went around and started, like, not standing in the crowd, but standing a little bit behind the crowd to watch the matches. When I came back into the locker room, he potatoed me so hard in the side of the face, and he just looked at me, and he was like, let me ask you a question. I was like, and I'm trying to figure out why he just punched me. And he's like, let me ask you a question. He was like, what kind of music do you like? I said, I like country music. He goes, would you like to go to a Tim McGraw concert? I said, yeah. He's like, would it be special? I said, yeah. He's like, would a Tim McGraw concert be special if George Strait was sitting right there in the front row talking to you? Would you really be paying attention to him up there? Or would you be watching the guy in the crowd with you? Because what you just did is so disrespectful to those guys wrestling in the ring. And I never forgot that lesson. I never forgot what it felt like to get punched in the side of the head either.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that right there is probably, I mean, that sums it up in a nutshell, man. And I grew up, like I said, in East Tennessee where wrestling is still real, and so like you can't. I mean, my dad taught me if you want to go eat with your opponent, go eat in the next county, the next the next city, because you don't want fans coming in and be like, oh, well, they just wrestled each other, like. I'm glad you said that, because I've actually heard similar stories that were like, no, I never heard someone getting potatoes.
Oh, he punched the shit out of me. He was my first trainer. I was 15, and he got me good. Yeah,
man. I just that right there, that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. Like, you want to give them, those fans wanting you. They want you. You want them. Now, of course, you want them to want you to go out there and sit and chat with them, for them to be your fan. But like, you also want them to come to the next show and be like, maybe I'll get to shake his hand the next show. Maybe I'll get, maybe I'll buy a front row ticket so I can clap his hand when he comes out around the ring. So like, that's my thing, is that if wrestling can get back to where it's not just gaga in the ring and then, hey, let's go party, with the fans, that'd be great. Because when you have a pro wrestler, he's just like a god, man. He's just soaking it all in, and he's just like, all the fans are worshiping him. Yeah, he's gonna come back again. They're gonna do it again until it just kind of dwindles down, and it's just like, we've hung out with him plenty enough, That's the thing.
No, absolutely.
I do want to say thank you for your service. I did want to say that.
Thank you.
I'm a very big supporter in our military. I love our military. I have a lot of family in the military, so I wanted to say thank you for your service.
I appreciate that, man. I pulled 6.5 years in the Army. Best decision I ever made. Never wanted to get out, but hey, here we are, and I'm excited for what life has next for me. But yeah, I served 6.5 years. Like I said, we were talking before we went live. I was stationed up just a couple hours from you in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It was always weird because the whole, like, if this is the entire base, this is Fort Campbell, all of it's in Tennessee. This little corner right here, that's in Kentucky, and that's where the post office is. That's why it's Kentucky and not Tennessee. But 99.9% of that base is in Tennessee, not Kentucky. But
yeah.
I do want to be respectful of your time. Before we get out of here, please let everybody know where they can find you, follow you, and keep up with everything you and Pile Driver Pro have coming up.
Yeah, on Facebook, you can find us under Pile Driver Pro. For me, you can find me under Axton Lowe. Axton Lowe is my real name, my shoot name, so you can find me under that.
Spelled just like it is in the corner of his screen?
Yep, right there. Yep. Yes, sir. Sorry, I was making sure. And then I also have an Unforgettable Axton Ray fan page that, I've got, go like it. I've always posted my matches on there. Sometimes I post my matches on there. Sometimes I post the posters. Try to keep up on my Instagram. I have a Axton Ray Instagram, so go there. It's Axton Ray. On Twitter, it's Axton96. So please go follow. Look at, keep up with the stuff. Push the product. Maybe Brian Hawks, if he's watching this, he'll be like, man, I got to have him on the main show. So.
Guys, if you're watching on the Twitch channel, use !Discord to get the link to join our Discord. I'll post all Axton's links and Pile Driver Pro links inside of our general chat in Discord. So if you're watching on Twitch, !Discord will bring up our custom Discord link. If you're not watching on Twitch and you want to get involved in the Discord and keep up with Axton, head over to twitch.tv/LKevin, !Discord, join it, and all of his stuff will be right there for you guys. A huge shout out to our sponsors at A-Rock Designs, Fusion Water Bottles, and storefrontier.com/Wrestling Review Society for all of your Wrestling Review Society merch. Axton, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, man, I'm such a fan of yours, and knowing the type of wrestling that I like. I love the old school NWA, the pick a body part, tell a story. Listening to you talk about your upbringing, no wonder I gravitated so hard into your character and and your style. I cannot thank you enough for doing this show, man. And on behalf of me and everybody watching, I just want to say thank you. If I can have just one more second of your time after this live feed ends, I'd really appreciate it. But guys, that's going to do it for us this Thursday. We'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with another pro wrestling interview for you guys. There is no live feed tomorrow. We are not doing a SmackDown watch along. No live feed tomorrow. The next time we go live on twitch.tv/ShowKevin will be this coming Monday. And then everything goes back to normal. But with that being said, for myself and from Axton, I want to thank everybody. Axton, anything you want to say before you get out here, man?
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me on the show. It's been fun. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.
With that said, we'll see you Monday, 7:25 for our Monday Night Raw watch along. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.